Welcome to the Obesity Medicine Podcast with your host, Dr. Rentea, board certified in internal medicine and obesity medicine. Here, we talk about a path to metabolic health, and we have real conversations about chronic weight management and living a full life. Just a reminder, I am a physician, but I'm not your physician. So everything that's on this podcast is for informational purposes, but please go talk to your doctor about what's right for you. There is no medical advice being given on this podcast. Welcome back to another episode of the podcast. We're going to today hit another one of these fan mail questions because this is actually from a previous coaching client of mine that worked a few years ago with me. It was really nice to hear from this person. And let me just read what they wrote. Of course, we always keep things anonymous. And I know that many of you are going to relate to this. So this person said, I wondered if you'd consider doing an episode on dealing with comments about weight loss. I hate when people comment and not dealing with it well. Thanks. So it's really interesting because I have some patients and coaching clients that really want comments to be said. In fact, they're offended that they've lost 30, 40, 50 pounds and no one comments. And then I have people on the other side where they don't want anything to be said. They're extremely uncomfortable with it. And what they're inferring, I kind of talked to this person a little bit more back and forth. They're inferring what I infer. I'll just share personally, which is, when I'm getting comments about, you look great right now, and, I can tell the weight loss, or whatever comment that they're saying, that it's really implying, hey, you were not looking great before. And so this is a tricky spot. And we're going to today, just for a few minutes, talk about it. Again, these are just some of my thoughts. I'm not going to say that I'm an expert in this. I think that there are several people that do a great job with this. One of them is Judith Gatan, and she is actually, I'm going to be interviewing her later this week. So that interview will release in a few weeks. So don't worry, we're going to talk more about this. I really think that this intersection of body image and how we think about ourselves and what we place value on in culture, these are things that we really need to examine, because it really very quickly comes to the surface when these comments are made. And the other person that I really like in this area, it's Katie Sturino, Katisturino. We're going to make sure to link her Instagram account as well. I've actually asked her as well to be on the podcast. I think that, there are just several voices in this space that I just find to be very helpful. And by the way, there are many accounts, but some I love more than others, and there are some voices that I just resonate with more than others. So, who knows if Judith Gatan I have a personal relationship with, and I have gone to her conferences and worked with her. So there's a relationship there. Katie obviously is just someone that I've followed and just like her work, but so we'll see if she comes on. But let's get back to this question. So I personally believe that it is not appropriate to ever comment on someone's weight. And I just think that I don't know when we started to normalize this. This is very much so a societal construct where we think that it's okay to comment on a woman's weight. And this can be for men as well. This is just everybody. And the problem here is this, because you could say, well, no, it's great. I want them to see my hard work and this and that. But hear me out for a moment. Number one, you get to have whatever opinions and thoughts you want, and there's no problem if it's not causing pain for you. I'm here to talk about that other side today, where a lot of people are actually suffering with this. So the problem with weight is that your weight is actually going to go up and down over your lifetime. And if every time you lose weight, you become more valuable, that's a problem, because we know that there are going to be very many scenarios, whether it's pregnancy, whether it's going through menopause, whether it's that you have a loss occur or a kid getting surgery. There are just big scenarios that are going to happen, and your weight might go up during those points. Something that I talked about, this is not my creation, but there's something called the self-love curve, the body love curve. And this is created by Dr. Deanna Palin. And she really talks about how that lowest weight, usually it's not where most people stay. Just based on metabolic adaptation, you might end up gaining back some weight if you're on a fat loss journey. And that actually might be your optimal weight when it comes up a little bit. So that's the L is the lowest, might be unrealistic to maintain it. You might not be able to keep up those things that are needed for that. You might not want to. It might be a lifestyle that's not conducive. And then the optimal might be a little bit just kind of coming up on that curve. And that might be actually where you then stay, where you can maintain. But then, so the LO, so the V, the vulnerable part, let's say you gain back a little bit more weight, you're vulnerable. Let's say a death occurs, something happens. There's this period where you're not able to keep up all the same things that you did. Maybe binge eating starts to come back. There's just many things that can occur. And then there's the period where you keep gaining and it's enough. You're like, I've really got to turn around. Like now I really need to turn this thing around. So she really came up with that nomenclature and sort of marrying that with metabolic adaptation and bringing all of it together. But my point being this, most of the time, if you have a chronic weight management struggle, for life, there's going to be some amount of up and down. Now, maybe you get to a place where, it's just a few pounds and you really are able to keep that steady. That's amazing for you, but that's really not possible for everyone. And if we are going to only place value on thin privilege, which is where my currency is only as thin as I can be, then I feel I can wear those size 0 clothes and people treat me better. And I get these different experiences. If that's the only thing we place value on, I think that's really sad. And I think that it's really not allowing ourselves to be worthy for things that actually matter, because I think size goes up and down, and I don't think it's a good measure of actual worth. And so if our weight's going to go up and down, it's very problematic if we're going to sit there and always congratulate people when the weight's down. I've also made videos on this online that I also think it really does a disservice to the previous you, that she was doing the best she could. She was not trying to not take care of herself, trying to put on weight, trying to not do all the things that might have been health promoting. And by the way, I'm not suggesting that when your weight's lower that you're healthier. Again, like all these things, I don't know how many ways to really be inclusive with this conversation. But my point is, it's always kind of suggesting that, look at this after, look at me right now. And then it's sort of saying, well, that sad girl, she wasn't happy, and look at her. And there's often a lot of pain associated with that. And so all of this is really brought to the surface when they think they're saying a nice comment, but really we're just highlighting again and again that you're only as good as how low with the weight you can get. And so again, just kind of having walked you through that, what's difficult here is that everybody wants a different answer. So some people love the attention they love that attention of, what are you doing? And how's this working for you? And they want to know what you're doing and all the things. And it's really interesting. I follow another account. Of course, I can't remember her name right now. And this woman had bariatric surgery in the past. She had a lot of weight loss. I can't remember if it's 100 or 200 pounds, but she said how every single conversation is about weight when she meets someone or someone from the past, that there is no conversation where it does not get brought up. And I thought about how sad that is, how it's not about, well, what's she passionate about at the moment? What's she pursuing? What dreams does she have? Maybe a conversation about kids and life and stressors, none of that, right? It's just about what her weight is doing. And she's touched on it as well. So it's not something that I'm just sitting here talking about, but I think that a lot of the time the intention behind the comments matter. And so I personally, how I've come to think about this, and I wonder if this can be helpful to someone out there. And again, we're going to continue this. This is going to be a multi-part series because we can't do it justice in one conversation. I choose to live my life believing that everybody comes from a good place, because a lot of people truly do not know how harmful it is when they make these comments. And so coming from that place, I'd like to believe that they think they're doing something great. You can decide, do I just want to say nothing? Because not saying anything is saying something. You could decide if you say thanks. You could decide if you shake your head. You could also decide if you want to make this a moment of education. So you could say, hey, listen, thanks for telling me that. Or, if you want to kind of like just graciously lead into this, you can say, thanks for saying that, but I just want to let you know that it can be quite problematic when you comment on people's weight, because, we're kind of implying that that's worthiness. Or you can decide whatever language you want to use. You could decide if you want to be the educator in that moment. You also do not need to do that either, because oftentimes these scenarios are very triggering. You're sort of in a panic zone. You're kind of fight or flight. A lot of the time we're not grounded enough to be like, here's my answer to it. So what I want to invite you to do is this. I want you to think right now, if people are going to make a comment about your weight, can you decide if you would want to answer at all, or if you do, what you would want to say? Because I want you to start to get some clarity in these scenarios to decide, I'm just going to realize that person, they're not hip to understanding the cultural moment that we're at. They're not as evolved as I am. They don't understand this. They're not in this space. They've not had this lived experience. I choose to believe those good thoughts about people, because otherwise I truly would be in arguments 24/7. 24/7, there's just a cultural moment that every single person can understand. And you get to decide, is this person worthy of getting that comment? Are they worthy of even getting that reaction? I will never forget when I was never more humbled than this was years ago. I was describing something to a friend of mine, and I don't know why I brought up the person's ethnicity. And the friend of mine responded because the story was irrelevant to that point. And she responded to me, and it had such a big impact on me. And she said, I don't know why you thought you needed to share that detail. I just wanted to point that out to you. And again, she stopped there, right? And then she was just kind of, saying whatever else about my story. And I was so caught off guard by that. Because I didn't even know that I had done that, right? This is often what happens with all of this, is that they don't even know what they're doing. They do not understand how hurtful and how harmful and all the things that they're implying and what they're doing. They do not understand. And so me hearing that comment, I will tell you, I'm forever changed how I describe certain things. I'm forever changed. I'm so humbled by it. And I'm so grateful that this person brought that to my awareness. I hope that story makes sense the way in which I'm saying it. So you get to decide with these things. Number one, is it coming from a place of good intention? Do you want to receive it as such? Do you want to educate them? Do you want to get to a place where you actually do not want to engage on these things? Because by the way, that also starts to retrain people. We teach people how to interact with us, what to say, what to do. Imagine if in this world, whenever people said, hey, you've lost weight, if people had no reaction, they didn't care, they didn't respond, they gave it no energy, we maybe wouldn't care about it as much because we'd be like, well, no one ever says anything or cares or whatever. So I'm not even going to say anything to that person. Again, I hope this is all kind of landing what I'm saying. But imagine if you never again commented on it, if you want to take this on as a reality for what you think is important. But if you never again commented on someone's weight, how that might change future generations. Or if you, for yourself, stopped making it a value of your worth if you're able to get down to the next weight bracket or not. Just imagine how that starts to percolate with time. Now, one of the reasons I think that some of these channels are really important to follow, again, when I come back to that Katie channel, it's because, for example, she made a post. It's really hard when I tell you, hey, don't comment on someone's weight. All you want to do, this is like 101 psychology. All you want to do is go comment on the weight, right? Now you're obsessed with it. I want to go talk about it. So what she said is, these are things that could be great. You could say, hey, I really love that dress on you, or, you're just looking really great today. There are other things that you can say that can be very positive in this way. So I am going to go ahead and try to find that post from her where Katie really talked through, hey, here are ways that you could actually engage. Because I think that a lot of us, we actually need to learn a new way that doesn't relate to just the size of someone. And honestly, whenever this is sort of work that deals with oppression that we're talking about, right? And work of liberation starts from the internal and goes external. So we have to stop using diet culture against ourselves first. So it starts with, you're not going to feel happier when the weight's lower. I don't need the weight to get lower for me to feel better about myself, for me to go live and have the experiences that I want. I'm not talking about ignoring physical realities of not being able to, for example, I'll never forget this mortified moment that I had in the past when I wanted to ride with my 2-year-old son at the time on a little train ride. And I literally couldn't get the seatbelt to fit in the little kiddie area. And I had to, this was the most embarrassing moment of my life. I had to walk back. And I remember that my husband had to go in there, and I was just mortified. And so, yes, I'm not negating those moments, but also realizing that you can still do a lot of things and not hold yourself back on every single front because of the weight. Because if we can start to go along those lines, then you don't think that other people, it's the most important thing in the world when they're losing weight. Okay. This is, again, even this episode, I knew it was going to be hard to record because there's just so many angles here, but I just want to hammer home for today because this is a heavy subject and there's just no point in talking long, going on and on about it. What I want you to think about is, what if I stopped using this as the main metric of if someone is successful or not when we're looking at other people. And then can I do that for myself? Okay, so that usually takes the temperature down a little bit on it. And then when those comments get made, I want you to decide right now if the person in front of you, are they worth explaining your side and explaining all of this to them? Or do you want to decide how you're going to react? I like the no reaction. That's me personally. Most people are not worth educating. I mean that in the nicest of ways. It is not worth my energy to get into a big argument or to try to persuade all the minds. You know, there's that saying, I say it a lot on here, those convinced against their will are of the same opinion still, right? So it's like, if you are thinking it's the be all end all, that the weight's down, I don't know that I have the energy to sit here and to educate you. Hey, you're kind of tapping on thin privilege and worthiness and, you know, all these different things. So to me, I might just not react. And so with time, family really doesn't care to comment on weight anymore. They're just happy that, you know, you look great, all these clothes, like they're not so focused on it anymore. Well, number one, they know that I'm taking care of myself the best I can. And I think this is an unfair thing. I have told them in the past, you know what? We just really don't ever again need to talk about weight, because it was something where it was just every single event, every single thing. There was always at the end, this serious moment where, and most loving ever from my parents. I know my mom listens to the podcast, just the super loving moment, but always, you know, we care about you and your weight. And I said, listen, we need to never again talk about it. I said, I never again need to hear it from you. You're not saying anything that I don't know. I'm very much so working on the things. I understand it's not going as fast as you'd like. I remember my sister saying a comment to me in the past when I went down the road of coaching. She goes, you need bariatric surgery. And here's the thing. All of this to say, you are actually in much more control than you realize. So you get to sit there and educate, or you get to decide these are words. They don't matter to me. This person doesn't know better, and I'm going to go about my life. I'm going to not respond, and that's super powerful. And that actually is me taking my power back. You get a lot of agency here, but it has to start, number one, with you not believing the pain that you're creating for yourself. And I want to throw this out here. This sounds like a small task, what we're talking about. It is not. And if you need some therapy, some counsel with this, maybe in some religious capacity, if there's someone at your church that, you know, you feel you can process this with, this is big, big stuff. This is also stuff likely that if we don't process it, you reach an upper limit where it's like sometimes you're not able to lose weight anymore. And this might be too out there for you, but there gets to be a point sometimes where fear is activated. These bigger things are activated because you've not ever been in a body where you're getting this kind of attention and you're getting these comments. And this is not small work. And if you need to talk to someone about it and really have some therapy for this and really process this, there's nothing wrong with that. But I just wanted to throw out today, how could we think differently for ourselves? And then us deciding, do I want to educate these people? Do I want to just not have a response? You get to decide all of it. But you're going to see the further you go down this road, there's going to be more and more comments. And by the way, I actually get a lot of these online, and it's interesting. I choose to just, you know, give a little heart to them because I know it's coming from a great place. And people are so aware when they're making comments on my channel, probably because we're talking about this a lot. And they say, you know, I know that this is not the most important thing, but, you know, I'm just noticing these changes in you. And, you know, it's interesting on my part because I was talking about this at a previous conference that I did not wait to start to educate until my body was what I thought the body should be, right? I've had to do my own liberation work. And part of that is that your body is out there for scrutiny, right? Because people can see sort of these videos over time and you talking and these things happening. It's very evident, right? That's always the problem with this chronic medical condition, is that everyone can see it. That's one of the reasons that I really think that overweight and obesity is one of the hardest chronic medical conditions, because everyone can see it. I'm not saying that every single medical condition does not have this mental burden. Very much so. It is the heaviest mental burden in the world. But with us, you can just you just go ahead and see it. So I want you to start to decide, do you want to educate on this? Do you want to let these things go? Because it's going to give you some relief to just decide, when I hear these comments, I'm not going to shake my head. I'm not going to nod. I'm not going to agree. I'm just going to look at them deadpan. Or I'm going to say, hey, thanks so much, but it's not appropriate anymore to comment on women's body. You get to decide whatever you want to do, but I want to give you back just an ounce of power because we've been stripped of all of that, and I really want to give that back to you. So I hope that today's episode was helpful. Again, I don't ever claim to be an expert in any of these areas. It's just an intersection where a lot of my patients struggle with this, as well as coaching clients and me myself. And so we're going to have Judith Gatan on. We're probably going to have some other thought leaders coming up here, just people that are in this, and that there's always another voice and always another perspective. And I think that it's really helpful because this work is needed for us to be fully liberated and to, as much as we can in this world that is drenched with diet culture and all the things, that we could even start to see ourselves in a different light. All right, I hope that this episode resonates with you. I would ask you, if you have not left us a review wherever you listen, for the first time in your life, go leave a podcast review. It helps us out so much. I'm so incredibly grateful. And if you have any fan mail questions, these are the kind of questions that we're getting, and they're beautiful. They really touch me. When I get these, I relate. And I want to make sure that we get content out on this podcast that relates to what we're actually, the human suffering that we're going through. Okay. I hope you have a great rest of the week, and we'll talk soon. That marks the end of today's episode. But if you're newer to the podcast, I want to tell you about something that we have, and it's a free podcast roadmap. So this is perfect for any of you that are listening where you want to be directed to very specific episodes. So let's say that you are just starting out and you want to know, what should I do right when I start on the medications? Or you're experiencing certain side effects on the GLP-1s, or you want to know what to do if you're in a plateau, or if emotional eating is taking over, or if hunger levels are high. So we have many different categories of episodes that we've talked about, because there's a lot at this point. So if you want to be able to navigate that very easily, we have it broken down by category, and also the episodes that are there, and we hyperlink to everything. So you can just click on it and find the episode, easy peasy. If you want that, you can go to renteaclinic.com/podcast roadmap. We'll have it linked right here underneath the show notes where you're listening. And you can go ahead and get that free resource so that it makes it easy for you to navigate, because I know that it's really hard when someone has an established podcast. I am such a podcast fiend, listening to podcasts all day long. And when I find one that I love, but there's a lot that are out there, I am so lost. So I hope that you enjoy this free podcast roadmap. Again, the link to get to that is going to be renteaclinic.com/podcast roadmap. I hope this is helpful, and let me know if you have any questions.